I won't go to see my father one last time. But that's not all. Brooke drops heavy revelations about her father and explains why she's now asking to be cut from his will. I've got the details. Let's break it all down. The leaked footage that shattered wrestling's first family. The wrestling community was left reeling when an explosive piece of footage surfaced in the aftermath of Hulk Hogan's death on July 24th, 2025. Linda Hogan posted a now-deleted Facebook video purportedly showing Brooke saying she would not attend Hogan's funeral, citing past trauma. The video included Brooke stating what appeared to be her final words about her father. "I will not attend Hulk Hogan's funeral even if he were my father. I don't care about the inheritance." But here's where this story takes a turn more twisted than any WWE storyline, brothers. Fans quickly identified the video as AI generated, noting altered visuals and an inauthentic voice. Despite comments pointing out its falsity, Linda initially kept the post up, further stoking the flames of family drama that had been burning for years. This wasn't just another work in the wrestling business. This was real family destruction playing out on the biggest stage possible. Brooke later confirmed attending Hogan's funeral in her July 29th Instagram post, debunking the video's claims. What made the leaked footage so believable wasn't its technical quality, it was that it reflected the real estrangement that had existed between Hulk Hogan and his daughter for years. The wrestling world had watched their family unravel in public, from the staged harmony of Hogan Knows Best to the bitter feuds that followed. The fake video simply echoed what many already suspected, that Brooke Hogan had been pushed to her breaking point by her father's behavior. He's capable of anything. Let's just put it that way. And this wasn't the first time Brooke had made headlines for distancing herself from the Hogan legacy. In March 2025, she revealed that she had suffered extreme verbal and mental abuse since childhood, which at times became physical. These were not the words of an ungrateful daughter chasing attention, but the cries of someone who had been systematically broken down by the very man who should have protected her. The dysfunction in the Hogan household ran deeper than any wrestling storyline could capture. Even Linda Hogan, Brooke's mother, posted a video of herself in tears, saying,
"I won't go to see my father one last time."
Brooke later opened up about her experiences with her parents in an Instagram post, revealing that despite everything she had been through, she still tried to stand by her father. She had even moved to Florida to help Hogan through nearly 25 surgeries, offering support while he faced both personal and business struggles. But when she needed him most, she found herself pushed away. She explained that suddenly he no longer wanted her at the surgeries, and everything became hidden behind a heavy curtain, like there was an invisible wall between them she could never break through. For Brooke, it felt like the final round of a fight that had been unfair from the very start of battle, where she never truly had a chance to earn her father's real love and respect. Things reached a point where simply speaking about him began causing trouble for her.
Say something here. I don't know what here, but I look terrible because I'm crying. And yesterday I went to try to go have Botox and shit, and they bruised me like, I don't know. But it's been 15 or longer years since I got left Hulk Hogan, and my family is in the worst mess. Brooke doesn't talk to us. She's had twins. She got married. She didn't tell us. She had twins. She didn't tell us. She had a huge fight with Terry. I don't know how that reflected onto me, but she cut me out.
What makes this situation especially heartbreaking is that Brooke had spent years trying to be the perfect daughter, standing up for her father in public while quietly suffering his mistreatment behind closed doors. Time and again, she was expected to defend his bad behavior in front of the world, and she did it out of love, only to realize later that she had been misled, manipulated, and lied to. To the wrestling community, she appeared to be Hulk Hogan's loyal daughter, but in reality, she was being used as a shield to protect his image while her own pain was ignored.
Last time we caught up with you, you kind of hinted that your dad was in negotiations to get back to the WWE Universe.
Oh yeah, I got in big trouble for that one.
So did you just misspoke?
How can you put it? What is the way that won't get me in trouble?
Before Hulk Hogan's death, decades of toxic behavior had already created deep rifts that would make even the most devoted wrestling fans question their hero. The control, racism, and emotional manipulation that marked his relationship with Brooke didn't appear suddenly, it was built step by step, like a long, drawn-out match, until their bond was completely destroyed. The most devastating blow came in 2015, when a leaked transcript from a 2007 tape revealed Hogan using racial slurs, including the N-word, while talking about Brooke's dating life, openly showing his discomfort with her reportedly dating a black man. This wasn't casual locker room talk or a slip of the tongue. It was a father using the ugliest, most hateful language while discussing his own daughter's personal relationships. For Brooke, imagine the impact their own father caught on tape saying those words about her love life. To make it worse, he went on to suggest her music career could suffer if she worked with black artists, proving that his prejudice wasn't just private opinion, but something he was willing to let ruin his daughter's future. For a young woman trying to find her place in the entertainment industry, this wasn't simply disappointing, it was soul-crushing. The scandal's impact on Brooke was immediate and devastating. At first, she defended her father in a 2015 interview, saying, "That's not who he is," but later admitted that the controversy ruined her career and forced her into the impossible position of defending his unacceptable behavior in public. Just picture it, a daughter having to go on national television to shield her father over racist remarks, even though those same racist attitudes were aimed directly at her personal relationships. It was like being locked in a submission hold with no way to escape. And yet, the racism scandal was only the beginning when it came to Hogan's controlling and damaging behavior toward his daughter. That pattern had started years earlier, and the world unknowingly watched it unfold on their reality show, Hogan Knows Best. What looked like playful father-daughter moments on screen were actually red flags of a toxic dynamic. One shocking example was Hogan installing a GPS tracker in Brooke's car to monitor her every move, even giving himself the power to remotely shut down the engine. Think about that for a second, brothers. This wasn't protective parenting. It was surveillance and control, the kind of behavior that has no place in a healthy relationship. The man who once preached about American values was, in reality, treating his teenage daughter like a prisoner. Episodes such as Brooke's first date and Brooke's dating game showed Hogan spying on her dates or intimidating potential boyfriends through so-called humorous antics. But what television audiences laughed at was actually the recording of psychological abuse. His controlling behavior didn't stop when the cameras turned off. According to multiple accounts, Hogan openly insulted Brooke for dating a black man and made it clear that he disapproved of her relationships purely because of race. This wasn't the behavior of a protective father. It was the mindset of a racist man who could not accept his daughter's independence or happiness. The deepest wound came years later when Brooke needed him the most. Radio host Bubba the Love Sponge revealed that Brooke had asked her father to walk her down the aisle at her June 2022 wedding, only to be coldly refused with the words, "Sorry, I don't do weddings anymore." This wasn't a scheduling conflict or a minor family argument. It was a father putting his pride and prejudices above one of the most important moments of his daughter's life. When Brooke finally found love with Stephen Alexi, Hogan could not set aside his issues long enough to support her, forcing her to marry in a private Orlando ceremony without telling her parents. That choice wasn't about rebellion or wanting something small. It was a heartbreaking reflection of how broken their relationship had become. This was about Brooke protecting herself from more heartbreak and emotional abuse at the hands of her own father. The cycle of rejection and control finally reached its breaking point in September 2023, when her estrangement from Hulk Hogan became complete. Brooke described the split as the result of private phone calls that no one else would ever hear, conversations filled with respectful disagreements, and a heavy veil around Hogan that she could never break through. But the most heartbreaking part of it all is that, even during this painful estrangement, Brooke was still trying to help her father. This was not a simple family argument or scheduling conflict. It came during rising tensions, and Brooke ultimately chose not to attend Hogan's September 2023 wedding to Sky Daily, saying she needed to protect her heart. Their relationship had fallen apart so badly that they couldn't even share in each other's happiness. That same year, Brooke took the extraordinary step of asking to be removed from Hogan's will, explaining that she wanted to avoid bitter disputes over his estate, and because she no longer trusted the inner circle she believed was exploiting him. Wrestling fans, this was never about money. This was about dignity, respect, and survival. When someone is willing to walk away from generational wealth because staying tied to it would destroy their soul, that tells you everything you need to know about just how toxic the relationship had become. Brooke didn't want his money, not even in her imagination. What she wanted was peace.
When your dad had his big scandal, was that hard for you to sit back and be a daughter and watch that go down? Because I got to imagine that's really painful for you at that time.
It's hard, and everybody's like, oh, Brooke stands by her dad and this and that.
The most heartbreaking part of this entire story came during Brooke's most vulnerable moment. In January 2025, she gave birth to twins and nearly lost her life in the process. Yet Hogan offered no support. Picture that scene, a daughter fighting for her life while bringing new life into the world, and her father, the man who once called himself a real American hero, was nowhere to be found. The estrangement had grown so deep that Brooke's parents weren't even told about the birth of their grandchildren. These children will grow up never knowing their grandfather, not because he passed away before they were born, but because their mother had to shield them from the same toxic environment that destroyed her own childhood. Wrestling has always been full of family feuds and dramatic storylines, but what Hogan did to his own daughter went far beyond anything that ever happened inside the squared circle. This was real-life emotional destruction, carried out by a man who built his career as a role model for kids while secretly shattering his own child's spirit. And yet, Hogan's toxic treatment of Brooke was only one piece of a much larger pattern of destructive behavior scandals and controversies that would ultimately define his legacy just as much as his wrestling success. The fall of his relationship with his daughter was only one casualty in a career filled with disgrace. A career that left behind scandals so explosive they made even WWE's wildest storylines look tame in comparison, brothers. When you strip away the red and yellow facade of the Hulkster, what you uncover is a pattern of behavior so toxic and destructive that it poisoned nearly everything in his life, from his marriages to his business deals to the very legacy that wrestling built around him. More recordings later surfaced, including jailhouse phone calls from 2008 between Hogan and his son Nick, where Hogan, once again, used the N-word to describe Nick's black cellmates. This proved his racist mindset wasn't a slip of the tongue or a one-time mistake, it was part of a consistent pattern that stretched across years. The racism scandal didn't happen in isolation. It was just one piece of a larger web of personal destruction. Long before that, Hogan's first marriage to Linda Claridge had already collapsed in dramatic fashion, setting the stage for how he would ruin every important relationship in his life. Linda filed for divorce in 2007, finalizing it in 2009, citing his affair with Christiane Plant, who happened to be one of Brooke's close friends. Think about that betrayal. Wrestling fans, not only was Hogan unfaithful to his wife of 24 years, but he did it with someone from his daughter's own circle. That wasn't just adultery, it was a calculated act of destruction that shattered multiple relationships at once. In the divorce, Linda walked away with more than 70% of their liquid assets, totaling $7.44 million out of $10.41 million, along with 40% ownership of Hogan's businesses and a $3 million property settlement. The financial blow was so severe that his once lavish lifestyle and ongoing legal battles nearly bankrupted him by 2011, cutting his net worth down from hundreds of millions to around $25 million. Yet, the personal cost ran even deeper. The divorce poisoned the family dynamics in ways that would haunt them for years. Linda's post-divorce relationship with Charlie Hill, a 19-year-old who had gone to school with Brooke, added yet another layer of dysfunction to an already broken family dynamic. Then came the infamous 2012 sex tape scandal, which delivered another crushing blow to what was left of Hogan's reputation and his family ties. Gawker Media released a 1-minute and 41-second clip of a 2007 tape showing Hogan with Heather Clem, the wife of his close friend and radio host Bubba the Love Sponge. The tape had been secretly recorded without Hogan's knowledge or consent, but that didn't stop the fallout from spreading into every corner of his life. While Hogan eventually won a $140 million lawsuit against Gawker, later settled for $31 million, the so-called victory came at an enormous personal cost. His marriage to Jennifer McDaniel, which lasted from 2010 to 2021, was constantly overshadowed by the scandal and its legal battles, proving that even a courtroom win couldn't undo the damage to his personal life. The sex tape wasn't just humiliating, it became the very vehicle that exposed his racist remarks and ultimately destroyed what little was left of his bond with Brooke. The same recording that brought him millions in court also contained the words that turned him into an outcast in wrestling and drove the final wedge between father and daughter. Through every one of these scandals, however, one constant remained. The one constant through all of Hogan's scandals was his inability to take real responsibility for his actions. His apologies always came with conditions, his explanations were filled with excuses, and his promises to change were quickly followed by more destructive behavior. That same pattern spilled over from his personal life into his business dealings. In January 2013, Hogan filed a $50 million lawsuit against the Laser Spine Institute, claiming that between 2009 and 2010, he underwent 6 unnecessary endoscopic procedures. The case revealed not only Hogan's reckless choices, but also how easily he could be manipulated by people who saw him as nothing more than a cash cow. According to the allegations, the Institute used scare tactics to talk him out of a traditional spinal surgery that might have saved his career, convincing him instead to undergo their less invasive treatments with promises of quick recovery. In reality, those procedures further destabilized his already damaged back and caused even more catastrophic harm. The most devastating part of this alleged malpractice was what it cost him professionally. Fans had long dreamed of seeing Hogan face John Cena on the grandest stage of them all, WrestleMania, but instead of passing the torch in a historic main event, Hogan was left in agony, his career derailed by treatments that should never have happened.
Imagine just hypothetically that your dad, okay, scored like a huge amount of money, okay? Not that this happened in real life or anything, but would you want any specific, you know, what would you ask for, like, specifically? Would there be one gift request?
I would ask him to give it to animals.
The same pattern of being used and manipulated extended into Hogan's relationship with Brooke. Just as the doctors allegedly saw him as a paying client instead of a patient in need of real care, Hogan himself seemed incapable of seeing his daughter as anything beyond a reflection of his own ego and reputation. When she needed him to simply be a father, he was too busy being Hulk Hogan. When she tried to carve out her own identity, he saw it as a threat to his control. The failed marriages, the racist scandals, the endless lawsuits, and the health crisis all combined to paint the picture of a man who could not maintain healthy relationships with the people who mattered most. Each scandal piled onto the next, creating a chain reaction of destruction that eventually consumed even his most important bond, the one with his daughter. But maybe the most tragic part of all was how these scandals exposed the enormous gap between Hulk Hogan, the character, and Terry Bollea, the man. The character spoke about training, prayers, and vitamins, inspiring millions around the world, while the man behind the curtain was tearing apart his own family through racism, infidelity, and emotional abuse. Over time, the controversies grew so overwhelming that they created a reality, where even artificial intelligence could believably depict his daughter turning her back on him completely. The leaked AI footage that appeared after Hogan's death wasn't convincing because of cutting-edge technology. It was convincing because it reflected the natural outcome of decades of toxic behavior. Yet, even as scandals defined his later years, Hogan's story didn't end there. His final chapter was marked by attempts at redemption, moments of spiritual awakening, and one last desperate push to repair the wreckage left behind. The final belt, Hulk Hogan's last stand, and his complicated legacy. When the Hulkster took his final bump on July 24th, 2025, he left the world with a legacy more tangled than any heel turn or face turn wrestling had ever seen. By then, his health had broken down under the weight of his career, with more than 25 surgeries in his last decade just to keep him moving. The same body that once lifted Andre the Giant before 93,000 roaring fans was now betraying him piece by piece until it could no longer hold up.
To have had that last match, but now it's completely out of the picture. You know, I'm just too beat up from the surgeries.
But it wasn't only Hogan's body that was breaking down. His larger-than-life persona was also crumbling, leaving behind a man who looked more mortal with every passing day. That realization seemed to push him toward a spiritual awakening, though for many, it felt like a case of too little, too late. On December 20th, 2023, Hulk Hogan and his wife, Sky Daly Hogan, were baptized at Indian Rocks Baptist Church in Largo, Florida. Hogan shared the moment online, calling it the greatest day of his life, writing words that stood in stark contrast to the chaos of his past. Total surrender and dedication to Jesus is the greatest day of my life. No worries, no hate, no judgment, only love.
I think I just, my body pretty much shut down on me, and I ended up having like 25 surgeries in the last 10 years.
Hogan described his baptism as a turning point in his life, stressing his commitment to living with faith and devotion. But here's the tragic truth, brothers. While Hulk Hogan was finding God and seeking peace with his creator, he never managed to make peace with his own daughter. The estrangement with Brooke continued right up until the end, proving that sometimes the wounds we inflict on those closest to us run too deep to heal, even with divine intervention. The man who preached redemption through Christ could not find the humility to pick up the phone and offer a genuine apology to his child. And then, as it so often happens with wrestling legends who push their bodies past their limits, the end came suddenly. On July 24th, 2025, emergency responders were called to Hogan's home in Clearwater, Florida, after a report of cardiac arrest at 9:51 a.m. The man who had entertained millions across the Hogan was rushed to Morton Plant Hospital, where he was pronounced dead at 11:17 a.m. The 911 call was later described as chilling and deeply unsettling, with leaked CPR footage showing paramedics fighting desperately to keep the wrestling icon alive. The audio recording captured the dispatcher's calm yet urgent voice directing the response, but in the end it was too late. The Hulkster had fought his final match. The wrestling world reacted instantly and on a massive scale, with tributes pouring in despite the controversies that had overshadowed his later years. WWE issued an official statement that read, "We are saddened to learn WWE Hall of Famer Hulk Hogan has passed away. One of pop culture's most recognizable figures, Hogan helped WWE achieve global recognition in the 1980s. The wording was noticeably careful, giving credit to his impact on the business while deliberately avoiding any direct praise of his personal character.
I just get tired of crashing and burning. You know, I get tired of making mistakes and getting up and moving forward. I get tired of getting so many scars on me. And, you know, I got to a point in my life before I met Sky, before I had the baptism, where I'd had enough. I was sick and tired of myself."
Fellow wrestling legends also paid tribute, though many found it difficult to separate the performer from the man behind the character. Ric Flair expressed shock and grief, saying, "I'm absolutely shocked to hear about the passing of my close friend Hulk Hogan. Hulk has been by my side since we started in the wrestling business. He was always there for me, even when I didn't ask for him to be." Flair's words captured the complexity of Hogan's relationships, capable of showing deep loyalty to his friends while at the same time destroying his own family. Triple H remarked that WWE would not be what it is today without larger-than-life personalities competing in the ring, and few, if any, loomed larger than Terry Hulk Hogan Bollea, focusing squarely on his professional contributions while steering clear of personal judgments. In his final years, Hogan's political awakening, especially his outspoken support for Donald Trump, added yet another layer of controversy, but it also showed that even as his health declined, he remained deeply engaged with the world around him.
Enough was enough! And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother! Let Trumpomania rule again! Let Trumpomania make America great again!
After Hogan's death, the political world also reacted, with President Donald Trump, one of Hogan's longtime friends, saying, "We lost a great friend today, the Hulkster." Hulk Hogan was MAGA all the way. Strong, tough, smart, but with the biggest heart. He gave an absolutely electric speech at the Republican National Convention. Trump's words highlighted Hogan's political alignment in his later years, when he had become an outspoken supporter of conservative causes. But perhaps the most revealing response came not from what was said, but from what wasn't. Brooks' silence in the immediate aftermath spoke volumes about the state of their fractured relationship, even in death. When she finally broke that silence on July the 29th, 2025, her words were both heartbreaking and deeply telling. She affirmed their unshakable bond, writing, "My dad's blood runs through my veins. His eyes shine through my children, and our bond has never broken, not even in his final moments." Yet beneath the love in her tribute, the pain was impossible to miss. She explained how she had tried everything to repair their relationship, but her father had ultimately turned away even her efforts to help. Despite it all, Brooks said she found peace in knowing, "I did everything I could." Brooks' words captured the depth of her devotion, saying, "He knew I would run through a burning building for him, and in many ways, along the path of life, I did." Yet even as we reflect on the painful truth of their relationship, the charitable side of Hogan's legacy also deserves recognition, though it stands in sharp contrast to his personal failures. During the 1980s, he became the most requested celebrity for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and spent decades supporting organizations like the American Diabetes Association and the Special Olympics. In 2018, his lifelong involvement with youth programs led to his induction into the Boys and Girls Clubs of America Alumni Hall of Fame. The irony is undeniable, a man who could inspire and bring hope to thousands of children around the world, while at the same time destroying the emotional well-being of his own daughter.
All of a sudden I was having all these dying kids and Make-A-Wish kids come to me. I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Then it got to the point where I got used to it. And now at 71 years old, when the Make-A-Wish people call me, I thank God it's still happening.
The legacy Hulk Hogan left behind is as complex and contradictory as the man himself. On one hand, his impact on professional wrestling and pop culture is undeniable. He is remembered as one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, a 12-time world champion whose Hulkamania phenomenon turned wrestling into a mainstream powerhouse. His legendary clash with Andre the Giant on February 5th, 1988, drew a 15.2 Nielsen rating and 33 million viewers, one of the most watched wrestling matches in history. He was honored in the WWE Hall of Fame twice, first as an individual in 2005, and later as part of the NWO in 2021. These accomplishments cement his place in wrestling history, achievements that can never be erased, no matter how tarnished his personal legacy may be.
He was a force to be reckoned with.
You know, the thing, I had lots of chances to sit down and talk with him, and doing Rocky III for him was one of the biggest things in his life. And he was so proud.
In his final years, Hogan's turn to faith became central to how he wanted the world to remember him. But perhaps the most honest reflection of his legacy comes not from his fans or his peers, but from his own daughter's words. Despite everything he put her through, Brooks still clung to the hope of reunion, writing, "He used to remind me, all of this is temporary, and I'll always find my way back to you. I truly believe that we will find each other in every lifetime." In the end, Hulk Hogan's greatest victory wasn't slamming Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3 or capturing his first WWF championship from the Iron Sheik, nor was it even his spiritual awakening in his final years. His greatest victory may have been his daughter's courage to finally break free from the toxic cycle of abuse and control that had shadowed their relationship for decades. And his greatest defeat wasn't losing a match or facing scandal. It was losing the love and respect of the daughter who had once seen him as her hero. That loss, unlike any championship or accolade, can never be undone, no matter how many fans he inspired or how many victories he claimed. Thanks for watching.